Welcome to episode 164 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all of the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, this week we actually have a short little interview with an up-and-coming author to start off our episode. So I guess we'll just get to it.
Yeah, so this is our interview with author Noel Stark. She wrote a book that is coming out in just a couple of days, April 22nd, called Love, Camera, Action. It is a romantic comedy set within the world of Hollywood, but it's not following actors. It is following directors. So we had a lovely little chat with her earlier this week where she told us all about her new book. And we also got to talk a little bit about some of our favorite books and some of the things that we love about them, hate about them. And it was really great getting to know her and getting a little insight about her new book. So without further ado, here is our interview with author Noel Stark.
So today we're doing things a little bit differently. We actually have a new author with us today, Noel Stark. And she's recently written a book that is set to come out on April 22nd. So we figured that we'd have a little chat and see what kinds of books she's into and what her new book is about. So, hi, Noel.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, no, we're happy to have you. We're excited to dive into your mind and learn everything we can about the minds of some of our favorite authors now that I've actually read, gotten a chance to read some of your book. And I have to say, it is so well written.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Oh my God. Like just going through it. So if you didn't know, I'm an English teacher by trade.
Oh my God.
And like, it's one of the things we talk about on the podcast a lot is how like books are getting really popular now, and maybe sometimes authors take advantage of pushing books out really quickly, and sometimes the writing sort of declines. And I just have to say, like, the writing in your book is so good.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And thank you, like, from an English teacher, that means a lot. It does. It means a lot. So thank you so much. Oh my God. I'm blushing.
So I guess you've had a super interesting career. So you've been an actor, you've been a producer, a director, and a writer, and now you're an author. So like, what inspired you to decide to write a book?
I was reading a ton of romance. Like I caught the bug. I was reading, I was one of those people that read a book every other day, like hundreds a year, like so much, like walking the dog and reading the book, or like waiting for something to boil and reading the book. And I just tripped across one, and I very naively thought, oh, I can write one of these. Why don't I give it a go? I never had thought I was going to write a book. I always put novelists, like authors, on a pedestal. Never thought I would ever do that, and knew that it was a lot of work. But for some reason, I kind of just felt, oh, yeah, that'll be fine. And of course, it was a huge amount of work. A huge amount of work. But, another thing that kind of made me keep going was that when you work in the TV and film industry, when you have a project, you have to convince a ton of people that it's an important project to do. You have to convince people with money. You have to convince people with time and equipment. And it gets exhausting. And with novel writing, it's just you. Like, of course, you have editors, you have beta readers, you have those people who are helping you out. But generally, it's just you kind of trying to figure out your voice and the plot and what you want to say. And that was very relaxing in a way, because I didn't have to convince anybody of the validity of the book.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, that makes sense. So you've said you've read, I guess, a lot of romance books. Are there any that like you've loved? Do you have any recommendations? Really, what are your books into?
I've read. The thing I love about romance is that it is so diverse. It's so diverse. It's can be, of course, romantasy, which is so huge right now, or dark romance, or erotica, or sci-fi, or western, or historical. So I have favorite authors that I follow in various romance styles. Like I love Talia Hibbert. I love her so much. Her contemporary romances are hilarious and sexy. Like The Hating Game, Sally Thorne, the classic that everybody's loves. Christina Lauren, of course. And then in fantasy, I mean, I guess they're like I love Alona Andrews. I love that writing team. I've read a ton of paranormal. I'm trying to think of the paranormal. I just read Allie Hazelwood's The Bride, which I thought was so funny.
Yes,
and so fun. And I was really mad when it was done because I was like, I wasn't ready to be out of that world. So I really love that one. I mean, Sierra Simone, Charlotte Stein. I love them. Sci-fi. What's like again? Alona Andrews does sci-fi. So like all those people, I really love. And but I'll read anyone. I'll read anything. So if you have any recommendations for me, let me know.
Yeah, we're actually reading One Dark Window right now by Rachel
Gillig.
Yeah, and are you liking it?
Yes,
I loved it. I've already read it. Kristen's just getting into it, but the world is very interesting. It's romantasy, but it also has like historic vibes.
Yeah,
it's very. I just love the different kind of world it is, and it is just a duology, so it's very like short and sweet. So it's over in 2. You're not waiting a long time for a new book.
Yeah, I the extended series I don't always love. I mean, I like the storyline to kind of close up in one book, but I'm not against longer storylines. I think it just takes a really deft hand to keep people's interest.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it's like it's a time commitment on well, at least like for me being a very prolific reader, when I get into it, that it's a time, you know what I mean? Like you are dedicating so much time when you're dedicating to a series, right? Like SJM is some of our favorites, but like a 7-book series, that is a time commitment, right? When you have other things to do, sometimes that it can be challenging. So I do like a series, but you gotta be in the mood for it.
Exactly.
And that's the thing with like romance versus like romantasy. There is like romance books, if there is a series, usually it's like a standalone kind of in the series. You can kind of like finish the whole story. Second book is kind of a different story. You might see peaks of the couple in the book before. So like I do like those kinds of books as well. And on that note, Allie Hazelwood is writing, or I guess it's written, but she has the second book of Bride is coming out, I think, in October. Which we're really excited about that one.
It needs to come quicker though. In October.
It does. I love all of her books though. She's like great. I would read her grocery list.
And that's the thing, like that's why I like to follow authors in a way, because like right now I'm going through a T. Kingfisher phase, and she writes these kind of dark romantasy, like and dark by I mean they're kind of sliding into horror a little bit. Because she like I just love the tone. And so even if I'm reading a different story or a different series, the tone is what I often like to follow. So, that's why I usually follow authors rather than books anyway.
Do you find that like now that you're going to, being a published author, do you find that like it takes you out a little bit when you're reading? Like, do you focus a little bit more on like the technical, like, oh, like I wish that they had like cut this or they should have expanded on that? Like, does it sort of take you out of
the joy of reading a little bit
I
now that
don't
you
know.
sort of have the other side?
I think actually the amount I've read takes me out a little bit more than the writing, because I'm actually more forgiving towards the writing because I know how unbelievably hard it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm more forgiving in that sense. I'm like, oh, okay, they're doing that thing there because they have to do this, and okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if I'm reading something that I've seen a bunch of times before, or if I'm like, that's not cool what just went down, or that's not well researched, like I know that for a fact that that's not well researched, that will take me out quicker. And I find that I'm becoming a little bit more choosy about, like, I'm DNFing more often, I find, because it's harder to reel me back in. Once you've lost me, I'm like, I'll try as far as I can, but then sometimes I'm just like, I don't like the tone, or like it's too obvious or cliche, or whatever, which is hard to do because it is kind of a cliche format. Like, what's hard about romance is that you have a very strict template with romance, where this has to happen here and this has to happen here, and like you can move around in that a little bit, but not too much, right? And so how do you make those forms sing? Like, how do you really make them more interesting as they go? So that's the tricky thing about romance, I think.
And also trying to be like original in a format that is so structured, and like know where it has to go. Like, we're reading a romance, we expect that HEA, and like I will be very disappointed if I don't get it. So like it's hard, I feel like, to be original and to like have your own voice when everybody sort of picks up the book knowing where it's going to end already.
Yeah, and I think that's true for murder mysteries. It's true for thrillers. It's true for spy novels. You basically know where all those are going to go, and so then it's about finding the originality within the journey. Because, and like, one of the reasons I read romance is because I know how it's going to end. Like, people are always saying, oh, but it always ends the same way. I'm like, I'm so happy about that, because I'm stressed out in my life as it is. There is enough that I don't know about happening every day. I don't want to read about it. And so it's very comforting that even though these people are going through trials and tribulations, that it'll all be okay. And that's, I think, very positive.
I like
that's
that.
why that's Kristen's favorite part.
It is. Yeah.
We talk about it a lot.
When I was a teenager, I actually, first book I picked up City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, that series. And I remember in book 2, there's or at the end of book 1, beginning of book 2, there's like there's something that puts the couple at odds, and you're like, oh my God, are they going to be together? I legit had to look up the ending of the series, not just the book, the whole series, because I was like, I'm not going to pick it up if this doesn't fix itself. And it did. So I read it and I really liked it. But that was sort of like, now if something happens I don't like, I am a Googler. I will look to the end. I need to know that it ends okay.
I feel
most of what we
sorry. We all want to say something about it. So we're talking all at once. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, I was just going to say, most of what we read now is romantasy or romance for that reason, because we know where it's going.
No, for sure. I mean, I went through big phases of reading lit fiction and other kinds of forms, and I really love them, and I'm really glad they're in my body. But for whatever reason right now, I'm like, those kinds of things just stress me out. Like, if I'm gonna put myself through the hell of someone's torment, I need to know that they're gonna be okay. And sometimes, like, I've had books where I've literally dropped them when something's happened, and I'm like, I can't. Like, I've dropped them on the floor, and I've left them on the floor for a week, and I'll walk by it, and I'm like, I see you there. I can't handle you yet, and then I eventually get back to them. But it's like, it's visceral, right? Those kinds of books.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess where you are also a producer, director, and writer. Do you have any favorite book adaptations that you've seen, or like, can you think of any that you might want to do yourself in the future in that field?
Yeah, honestly, romance books are so different than romance movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of romantic comedies, like in film. I love them so much, and as a result, I'm very critical of them. Very critical of them. There are ones that I think are absolutely perfect, and I will watch over and over and over again. But it is very easy to lose me on a romantic comedy. Whereas I'm a lot more forgiving in romance novels because I think because you can spend so much time with them, you spend so much time with the characters, you know what's going on with them internally. You can go back over stuff. You can really put yourself into situations. Whereas, films are so rigid in their time constraints that it's easy for them to go wrong. For me, anyways.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, I like to keep them separate. I think that they're two very distinct mediums. So I actually don't. Like some people say, do you want to adapt your book into a film? And I'm like, maybe someone else can do that. and maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. We'll see. Because, like I said, The Hating Game, right? The Hating Game has an adaptation, and I've been forcing myself to stay away from it because I don't want it. I'm sure it's great. I don't know, but I don't want it to change my view of the book.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That is one of my favorite books to read. It's like a comfort read of mine, The Hated Game.
Yeah.
And I have watched the movie like 2 or 3 times, and I do like it. But now when I read the book after it, I'm like, these are the people, and they weren't originally. So it does really change the reread.
It really does change the reread. So I didn't want to do that, but
yeah. Of course.
I also feel like too that like with adaptations, I find they've done so many over the years. Like everything now was a book and is a movie. And if you read the book first, you just can't, like, it's just never, I feel like the movie just, every once in a while, yes. But I just find that it's never going to hit the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Except for Pride and Prejudice 2005.
Right. So I listened to one of your podcasts, and you guys talk about Pride and Prejudice, and I was wondering why you guys had never seen the original Pride and Prejudice with Laurence Olivier and Greta Garbo.
I don't know, actually, because we've seen almost every other adaptation. The 1995 BBC, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Like, we've watched, but we have not yet done a watch party with the original.
Yeah, you should go. Tell me what you think of that one, because I've seen it a long time ago, but I can't remember. I can't remember too much from it, but I do remember liking it. So take a look at it and see what you think, because it's very proper, right? Because I think it's I'm going to say 1943. It's around there. I'm not quite sure, but it's around there. So take a look at it and see what you think.
We definitely will. I didn't realize it was Greta Garbo. I knew it was Laurence Olivier. I did not know Greta Garbo was in it too.
I'm pretty sure it's Greta Garbo.
Wow. I do like her.
They're also making a new one of Pride and Prejudice on Netflix I think it's in the works right now, but they really do take that movie out often to remake it, or that book out, I guess.
If only Jane Austen knew what her book would become.
I know, right? I know. And I like the debate about the 2005 versus the 1995. I'm team 1995 because I like that awkwardness that that happens in there, and I have some issues with Keira Knightley, but that's just because of Keira Knightley.
That's right.
Nothing else to do with that.
It's like so true to the book. If you read the book and looked at the 95, like
oh my god, it is
so true to the book. So I understand that too, but I just Matthew McFadden is just
that's
I can't.
Gotcha.
And the cinematography too of 2005, and just like the soundtrack, the music, the score was phenomenal. Catherine knows this already, and so does everyone listening. That I actually purchased the the score in piano version so that I can learn it on my piano, and I play it just for fun. Just because I really like the score.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. I'm letting out so much more of my coolness now.
That is very cool, I gotta say.
Was it a really big transition from going from writer of like shows and scripts and stuff like that to writing a book?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I still struggle with is writing internal thoughts, because I'm used to either like I have experience in scripted TV, but I also have a lot of experience in reality TV. And so I'm used to either writing dialogue that actors will perform, and so they bring their own, interiority to it, or just stuff that's already happened that I'm writing as it goes, like I'm putting it together in an editing kind of style to put it together. So I have a lot of trouble still writing interior thoughts of where the people are. And so my editor is always like, what's this person thinking? Like, why are they saying this? I'm like, it's clear. It's right on the page. And I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's really not. It's not clear at all. And so that's been my toughest thing. But what I have learned from TV is the importance of making every moment matter, because it is so efficient. TV, like everything that you have the characters do has to speak to their issue or speak to something, putting them, like thrusting them forward. And also, like I used to write a lot of ghost shows. So I would write the reenactions for, or not reenactions, recreations for ghost shows.
Yeah.
All those super cheesy, like non-union actors, like going and like opening up doors and like looking as scared as they can. And I had such tight deadlines on those that I had to make instantaneous decisions all the time. I'm like, this is what I'm going with. I'm going with this. I don't have time to like think about their motivations. I'm going with this. And as a result, it kind of helped me write the book in a way that I didn't really, like navel gaze much at the book. If there was certain scenes that weren't going quick enough, I'm like, there's something wrong with this scene. Like another decision has to be made because it's not coming, So that's what was very valuable about my TV background.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That must like also help with your like you said, you had to work with such quick deadlines. So like it probably also helped keep you sort of on a stricter timeline with the writing itself.
Yeah, that was something that I had to learn separately. Like, yes, like the deadlines told you that this needs to be done. Like it won't finish itself. Like you have to do it. And so, but to stick to a deadline that I make was tough. Like saying, okay, and I'm a single mom, so I would have to steal time from all these different places. Like when I live in LA, when I first came here, I didn't have a car. I would take the bus to work. I would write on the bus. I would write outside of my son's taekwondo class. I would write outside of my son's swimming class. I would find all of these ways to steal time because I knew I didn't have the possibility of like taking a week and really getting into it, or taking a few months or whatever. Like I had to do it that way. And then as a result, I also had to say, okay, this amount needs to be done at a certain time, because if it's not, it just won't get finished. So that took a lot of trial and error to figure out where I could write, when I could write, how much needed to be done, because it was so much more work than I ever expected. I was shocked at the end of it how much time I actually did spend working on it. So I had to learn that in a new format.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we should probably talk about the book itself. Like we talked about you writing it and your inspiration. We should probably talk about the book. So tell us all about it. Okay. What's it called? Who's in it? Who's our characters? What it's about? When it's coming out? All of it. Okay. We want all the details.
All the things. Okay, so it's called Love, Camera, Action. and it's set on a TV scripted set. I'd read a lot of Hollywood romances, and I noticed that they were mostly focused on the actors or the writers, and outside of the set environment. So I really wanted to do something that I personally hadn't seen, which was focus on the director and the director of photography and the crew, basically. And what happens is that Callie, our heroine,
can I just stop though and say that I love your character's name?
Oh, good. Why?
I just love Calliope. I love it so much.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So, sorry. I just needed to stop and say that it was an amazing choice.
Okay, well, good. I actually chose it because I had an idea of kind of exploring the ideas of the Greek muses and what it meant. Like, you always hear of men invoking the muse, and you see these paintings of women draped across chaise lounges, and the mistress is the muse or the wife is muse or whatever. And then I was thinking about like, how do women access the muse? And so then I actually purposefully called Callie Calliope because she's like the head muse who kind of organizes everybody. Her sister's real name is Cleo, like she changes it, which you find out during the book, but and she's the muse of like poetry and translation. And Talia who's one of the actors, she's the muse of comedy, and Melanie, which is Mel Pimeni, which I'm not going to name anybody Mel Pimeni. I'm just not going to do that. She's the muse of melancholy. So it gave me kind of a structure on it to follow. So Callie, Calliope, she's brought into this TV world because a director has been fired because he said something very unfortunate about the Me Too movement, and he has to be fired, and the production needs a PR move to hire a woman, but they can't find anyone except from this woman from Canada who's kind of in the bush leagues. But one of the things that she's very good at is directing sex scenes, and they have a very big sex scene coming up, and so they hire Callie. But they hire her like that. She's got to walk right onto the set on her first day. Like, she doesn't have a ton of prep time. She walks in and she meets one of her idols, which is the director of photography. This super hot, very smart, very creative guy. And she's like, oh my God, how did I land this job? And so there's a lot of imposter syndrome with her that she has to fight. But she's also excited for this opportunity and to work with one of her idols. And then her idol turns out to be kind of a jerk. Like he's not like really a jerk, but he's difficult. He's difficult. Yeah. And he looks at her as someone who's just kind of getting in the way of his day. He doesn't want any sunshiny directors trying to put their mark on the show and having her own voice. He just wants to get it done, and he doesn't want anybody getting in the way of that. And so as a result, there's a friction between the two because she's kind of let down and he's, frustrated with her because they also work very differently. He's very structured. She's bases more of her thoughts on inspiration. And so they have a hard time working together, and it becomes this kind of enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers situation because he wants to become a director because he wants more control over the set. And she's got the job, and he's annoyed that he's also annoyed that she's bringing so much joy to the set and bringing so much liveliness. And he's like, I don't want to feel lively. I don't want to feel joy. So there's also a bit of a grumpy sunshine thing going on.
I love it.
Yeah. So they move through the set like that, and they, the ups and downs of the romance come from the struggle, like the very struggle of being on set. Like when you're on set, you're working with people 12, 14, 16 hours a day and very like in this enclosed space for weeks. And there's a kind of forced proximity to it that engenders a lot of drama and sometimes romance and all those kinds of things, while they are also, Callie and Jory are fighting their growing attraction and knowing that they really can't have a growing attraction because all eyes are on them. Understandably, like we're in a new world where, you know, onset romances are looked down upon a lot more strongly than they used to be. And they've got to navigate that. So that's what it's about. And it's coming out on April 22nd. And that's it. That's what it is.
It's, from what I've read so far, I think I'm quite a bit through, but the beginning, without giving too much away, there's a wink that I found so like cool and cheeky. Like he winks at her and then she just gives it right back at him later.
Right.
That I just like stuck in my head as being such a funny moment on her part. Like you really get to know her as a character. Like that's something that she would do. She's like lively and joyful, but also she's not afraid to like give it back.
Yeah, because
which I really appreciate for a female character.
Yeah, like it's hard being a female director. It's very hard. Like there's not very many out there. I think, you know, when I started writing this book, 7% of directors were women.
Wow.
Now they're up to 12, which is good, but still quite low.
And double, but still only 12.
Still only 12. And it's going down while projections are saying it's going back down. So it's very hard. And I say this in the beginning of the book, you know, when a guy walks on set, he's got the first day to prove to everybody that he's worth it. Because in TV, directors only do 1 or 2 episodes. The crew follows the series all the way through, but the directors only do 1 or 2 episodes. So when a guy comes on, he gets the first day to prove that he's worth following. But a woman gets the first scene. So she's like, Hallie's got to fight. You know, she didn't go to film school. She doesn't come from a wealthy background. She learned on the ground. So she knows how to fight. And even though she is kind of sunshiny, she's not afraid to lay it down when she needs to.
Yeah. Well, so I guess thank you so much for letting us know all about your new book.
Thank you.
Tell us again. It comes out April 22nd.
Yep.
Love, Camera, Action.
Yeah.
Where can we find it?
You can get it at Barnes and Noble, Bookshop, Amazon, all the places. It's got an audiobook. It'll have an ebook. So
awesome.
All the things. You can get it however you consume your books.
So no excuses. Everyone needs to go out and get it.
Yes, exactly.
And I personally, I'm so excited to finish it. So I guess thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. And you'll have to email me and say tell me what you think.
Yes.
I want to hear about it.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noel.
Okay.
So we just want to say thank you to Noel Stark for being a guest on our show this week. We're going to get into it now. Just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy. They definitely will get saucy.
Woo.
Just FYI.
Finally.
We got the sauce.
So, this is our 3rd week reading One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. We're doing chapters 19 to 27. Last week, we ended off at, like, the beginning of a robbery. It was very tense. We were just, like, jumping into putting their masks on and getting into a fight. And we had very mixed signals on who the romance was with.
Yeah.
Do you know this week clears it up.
Do you know what's funny, though? It's so I was actually at a swim meet over the weekend, which you know, and I was talking to another parent that I know pretty well, and we were talking about what books we were reading. She was reading a book, so I said, "Oh, this is the book I'm reading," and she was like, "Oh, I read that," and I said, "I'm still stuck on who the love interest is," and she also wouldn't tell me. It's like this big secret. No one. It's like a conspiracy. No one wants to tell me.
Well, you found out this week.
Yeah, but what if it's a ruse?
Woo.
What if it's all a ruse?
I would never tell you.
I know.
Yeah. Well, we found out something this week. So, So yeah, I guess we'll just get right into this week. So we start off with chapter 19, and the little card thing at the beginning is about the Iron Gate. And it says, "Be wary the moss, be wary the fence, be wary the gate and the mist dark and dense. It'll stop all your tears, it'll steal all your years. Be wary the gate and the mist dark and dense."
So what does the Iron Gate card do again?
That's a good question. Iron
Do
Gate.
we remember? I know we talked about this. Like I literally went through them all. Like
Yeah.
week 1, or definitely week 1. But
yeah. So the Iron Gate offers serenity no matter the struggle.
oh, okay.
But
so it's like
it'll
Prozac.
steal. It's like what?
It's like Prozac.
Prozac. I heard crows something, and I was like, Crowsack? Which is not a thing. Sorry.
A crow's ball sack?
Yeah. I was like, is this some witchy thing that I don't know about? Yeah. So offers serenity no matter the struggle, but stole years from the owner's life.
Nice.
Which seems kind of insane, but makes sense because I think the main part is it'll stop all your tears, it'll steal all your years. Like, yeah, I can understand why you say that now. So we get right back into this thievery process. Elspeth thinks there are too many hooves, and she can see the green Iron Gate card. It's in the carriage. But then she can see 4 black horses, which are destriers, and a red scythe. So one of the destriers is Prince Hauth. So I'm assuming that there's 3 destriers and Prince Hauth are there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is obviously not good, and they weren't expecting it. So she tells Ravyn that she can see these cards, and he also wasn't expecting them to be there. And he nightmare cards to all the others that are there to warn them. And we have Ravyn, Elspeth, Elm, Jesper, John? Is his name John? Oh, I love him so much. I forget his name, though. I'm such a dick.
Huh? Who?
The squire of the house.
Oh, it's like, oh, God.
Thistle, John Thistle.
Thistle. Yes.
And the 2 Ivy brothers. Peter and somebody else. Sorry.
No, I don't know.
This is all I can do right now. Ravyn just says they have no choice to try it, but to try anyway. And she's like, this is stupid. But he says, like, if they rush Hauth, he won't be able to use the scythe on them. Which is, like, quite the choice. And then he asks her where the Iron Gate is, and she tells him it's in the first carriage. And he asks if she wants to use the mirror. But she says no, because she's afraid of what will happen if she touches it. But he uses it and tells her that they'll go last, and she'll lead him to the card, and then immediately just run back and get, like, out of the fray. Jesper, Elm, and the Ivies shoot rope across the road in front of the carriage to, like, stop it. It's very classic, like...
Well, this is the thing. This is part of the reason why this book feels so, like, historical, even though it's not at all. Like, there's no history here in any way, shape, or form. However, for some reason, this sort of a thing, like your typical highwayman, like it, you know, you're it's a coup.
Yeah.
it's just makes it feel very like old timey, sort of like nostalgic. Even though I'm not 200 years old, it gives you that feeling of nostalgia.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It has all of those tropes, which I love. Well, even the pants trope last week, like, that is so common in historical romance books. So Ray-Bans Ravyn grabs her hand, and they go, and she sees, like, everyone start to fight. But Ravyn pulls her past it, and she notices that the Iron Gate card is out of the carriage, and she tells him that it's in Pine's cloak, and it's on the right side. He's like, cool, he sees Pine. He tells her to run. So she runs back and immediately just like slips and falls, but luckily misses a blade. And I'm like, is the nightmare doing something here to like make her slip so she doesn't get hit with a like flying sword? But we don't know. The nightmare tells her to get up, and she does, and she runs, but she looks back to the green card, and while she's not looking, she barrels right into her father. And we're like, what the fuck? Her father's here? And he's fighting Elm, and he elbows her in the face, and she falls and tastes blood. And then she notices that the second carriage that is there is actually her father's carriage, and she's like, oh shit, not a great time. So she crawls to the trees and hides like she was supposed to, but then she sees Elm lose his sword, and her father is like legit seconds away from killing him. And the nightmare just tells her it isn't her concern, but he's also a prince. But the nightmare also hates the Rowans, so it's like, really? But she can't let him die, which is another reason you're like, well, is he going to be the love interest? Because she's going to have to save his life. Like, is that what's happening? So she finds a rock, and then she throws it at her father, and Elm ends up getting away, but then her father turns to her, and the nightmare's just like, now what? And I just love how sassy he is. So...
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, though. I totally, like... Oh, God, this is gonna sound really bad. I sort of, like, glazed over this whole part and, like, barely read it.
It's fine.
Like, I don't know, I find, for some reason, these, like, action, quote-unquote, scenes, I don't know, I just find them hectic.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but, like, I find them really, like, I don't know, but, like, I remember doing it for the first one, too, when Elm and Ravyn attacked her on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I sort of, like, breezed past it as well.
Yeah.
And now for this one, I also breezed past it, and, like, I sort of just got the gist of it and was like, cool, and just moved on.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about it.
Interesting. I can't help you. Because I was like, oh no, her father, what's going to happen next? Oh no, Elm's going to die. I was very into it. So she pulls out her knife as her father approaches, and she begs the nightmare to help her. And she closes her eyes, and she feels the pain of the infection, and the nightmare makes her stronger and faster. And before, like, she even opens her eyes again, she ends up, like, stealing her father's dagger, and he's knocked down. And then, like, she, quote-unquote, says, be wary the blue, be wary the stone, be wary of shadow, the water hath shown. Your enemies wait, the wolves stalk the gate, be wary of shadow, the water hath shown. But
I don't understand any of that.
It's not her voice that's saying it. It's the nightmare that's saying it to him.
But whose voice is it? Do you think he would recognize his daughter's voice?
You would fucking think he'd recognize her shape or anything, and he really doesn't.
But I mean, he hasn't lived with her in, like, how many years?
At least
11?
Yeah, must be.
So, like, you know, we sort of get it, but, like,
yeah,
you know, it does seem weird that he doesn't even recognize her voice unless Nightmare has superimposed his voice.
Yeah, which is like, you're still using her vocal cords. I'm not sure, like, is he talking about like the card that he has. I forget what card he has left, but is that card? I think that card is blue, but I forget what it's called.
The well?
Yeah, thank you. Would make sense for it to be blue. So I don't know if he's talking about that in this moment or what he's talking about, but her father looks at her with fear in his eyes, and she's like, oh, he doesn't recognize her. But she also knows that her eyes are now yellow, so, like, it's not like he's looking into his daughter's eyes. And she has a mask on, so, like, I guess.
Yeah.
Then she's knocked over by a horse and ends up hitting her head, and Jesper actually pulls her up, and they run into the mist. But a destrier knocks Jesper down, and they fight, and Jesper ends up knocking him out, which is, like, ideal. Then Jesper reaches for her charm, but it's gone, and they're already in the mist, and she starts to scream, and she, like, says that she smells salt, and she can't see, and Elspeth's just like, what the hell is going on? The nightmare says that it's the spirit come to exact balance. So, it's not good.
Interesting.
Elspeth also thinks, like, she left her charm at home because she was told she didn't need it. And Jesper is, like, called deeper into the woods, and Elspeth runs after her. And Elspeth, like, hears an animal scream, and the nightmare says that the spirit has no forgiveness, no pardon to lend. She calls out our names, neither kin, foe, nor friend. Which is exactly what Ravyn said last week, that the spirit was not kin, foe, or friend. So I guess that's where he got it.
Oh.
And then he says, she watches the mist like a shepherd, its sheep, and pays those she snares with the great final sleep. So she watches the mist, and then when people get snared in it, they die. She hears the scream again, and she hears the words, help me, and realizes that it's not a dying animal, it's actually Jesper. So she finds her, and her ankle is twisted in a root of a tree, and Jesper laughs and says the land is bringing her home, which is just scary when people laugh when they shouldn't laugh. And then Elspeth asks Jesper if Ravyn has a second charm, or if he has a charm on him, because he doesn't need one either. And at first she doesn't hear, but then she, like, snaps out of it for a second and says, yes, hurry. So Elspeth, like, runs frantic, and she's lost, and she ends up, like, doubling back towards where they knocked out the destrier.
Mm-hmm.
And the nightmare tells her to listen, and she hears footsteps. And then she sees 3 black horse cards and a side card. So she's right back where she started, basically. I guess 2 of the destriers pick up the one that Jesper knocked out. And Hauth yells out, like, who's there? And then, like, all 4 cards just disappear. So Elspeth, like, comes out from behind the tree, and I'm like, no, you idiot. You can't come out. But she thinks, like, she needs to find Ravyn immediately. Like, Jesper's hurt and yelling. But Hauth is just right in front of her. And he grabs her arm, and she pulls away, and something inside her wrist snaps. And he asks, who are you? And the nightmare takes over and claws his face from, like, jaw to shoulder. And she runs, and she asks what the nightmare did. And the nightmare says he came for the girl, but got the monster instead. And Hauth is, like, screaming in pain behind them. And she's like, fuck. So she ends up falling, and when she looks up, she can see the burgundy violet and the mossy green, so she knows it's Ravyn running towards her. And he's using the mirror, so she just, like, accidentally runs right into him, but they're together again. Ideal.
Together again.
So she tells him that Hauth is behind her, but she can't see his cards anymore. And
which is weird, and I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know if, like, it just means he's not right there right now, or if he has a way to hide them. Why would he even try to hide them? Why did she think he was gone and he wasn't? So many questions. But Ravyn says, like, the carriage is fled, and the destrier stayed behind to try to find them. And then he takes her hand, and she says that Hauth broke her wrist, and he tries to check it, but she says that Jesper needs help now. So they start running again, and they end up finding John Thistle, and they're able to trace her steps back because she was like so frantically running through the forest. And they find Jesper, and Ravyn gives her a charm, and she just like almost immediately snaps out of it and asks what happened, which is good.
Yeah, I just like I find this whole her wrist is broken storyline frustrating.
What?
Because I don't know. Because they don't seem to care about it.
About it being broken?
Yes.
Yeah. I felt the same way the first time I read it. I was like, how is she doing this other shit if you're saying her wrist is broken? It comes up like minimally for how broken it is.
Yes. And like, yeah, it does come up in the story when like it needs to.
Yeah.
But then also it's like they wrapped it in a bandage. Like a bandage ain't gonna do shit for a broken wrist.
No.
Like don't they have like physicians and healers that can use magic to help fix things?
I don't actually know.
Oh.
Because like nobody's supposed to have magic but the cards. So like I don't know if anyone can actually heal anything.
There are no health cards. There's no one with health points.
There should be, right?
HP.
This is a misstep. But she can't touch a card anyway, so even if there was a card that could help her, she can't touch it.
Well, that's a good point. Oh.
But you'd think that there would be something.
Anyway, I'm just like, they literally have a physician living with them in the house, and he doesn't look at her wrist once.
I think he wraps it at some point in this book.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyway, continue.
I don't really think it needed to
be
snap
broken?
her wrist. Like, you could have just hurt her arm and had the same, like, like her whole hand bruised, but it's not broken. Like, I don't know. But yeah. So then the Ivies find them, and Royce Linden, who we'll hear more about, he's a destrier and a piece of shit, ended up breaking one of their noses, Peter. But they say no one recognized them. So Elm shows up then and asks if Ravyn got the card, and he shows them, and in his hand the light disappears because he can't use this card either. Elm asks Elspeth then if he recognized her, and Ravyn asks who, and Elm says her father. He says he almost killed Elm, but she fought him off, and she says that he didn't recognize her because if he did, he wouldn't have tried to kill her like he did. It's like, I guess. Ravyn looks at her wrist then, and Elm asks who did it, and Ravyn says Hauth, and and they ask how she got away, and the nightmare says from her, perhaps it was he who got away from me.
Ooh.
You're like, oh, the nightmare, he's getting bolder and more powerful. He's using her voice. So then we have another card about magic. It says, magic is the oldest paradox. The more power it gives you, the weaker you become. Be wary, be clever, be good. Magic is the oldest paradox. I guess that's just where we get the be wary, be clever, be good thing.
I guess. I don't like how they use it.
Yeah. Ravyn then says he'll take her back because Elm gave her a ride there because he's the best horseman. So now Ravyn's going to go back with her.
Right.
And she asks him about his charm because it's actually a viper head. And he says he keeps it on him in case he needs the venom. So basically, so that he's able to kill himself if he, like, gets taken or they think that he's done treasonous things, like he can kill himself with the viper head poison.
Yikes.
Yeah. But it's also a charm and saved his sister, so you're like, cool.
I'm sorry, wait. How does a viper keep the venom in his head after he is dead?
Don't know.
You would think that would dry up and go bad.
I have no idea.
If anyone is an expert on snake husbandry, please let us know if this is possible. Because I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that I'm like, I assume that you'd Google that before you'd put it in a book.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. We don't have snakes in Newfoundland, everybody. I think you should know that. Other than pets and ones that have, like, gotten loose. But other than that, there are no snakes.
No, we don't. No, we don't have them.
We don't grow up with them, so we're very ignorant of snakes.
Yeah. No
when we see them, we're like, holy shit, they're real.
What do they call a nope rope?
Yeah. Danger noodle.
A danger noodle. That's funny.
So Ravyn tells her then that they couldn't have done it without her, and then he says that she scared him when she came running at him. She didn't seem like herself, and he says sometimes her eyes flash yellow, and there's a stillness and darkness that isn't her. Then he just says there's a darkness in all of them with the infection, and there's always a price, and nothing comes for free. And it's like, man, you were so close. You were so close to asking her what the fuck is going on with her yellow eyes, and then you were like, but I guess it's just the darkness in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
You could have just asked.
Yeah.
So they ride back together, and she just, like, dozes, and the nightmare doesn't speak to her when she, like, pokes at him in her head. And they get back, and he helps her down and tells her there'll be more eyes on them now, and asks if she still wants to pretend. And she asks if he does. And he says out of all of the things he pretends, courting her has proven the easiest. Which is cute. And she just says how flattering. Which I love, because he's been very, like, he's back and forth on everything.
He's also seems like he's been very obvious on how much he doesn't want to tell everyone that they're courting.
Yeah.
Like, he's very much like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, well, he said those words.
Yeah. So, you know, she's just sort of like, thanks a lot, asshole. Like, you know, oh, you don't mind the fact that we're pretending to court. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's not really an answer. And she's like, oh, half answers are infuriating, you think? And he's just like, okay, well, if we're going to keep courting, you can call me Ravyn. And she just says, good night, Ravyn. And he says that he'll take that as his answer, which is cute. She goes to her room, and her flower crown is on her bed, which is cute. I guess they had it sent up there. And then we get that, like, she has another dream that night, and it's of the same room and the night on the dark stone, and when he looks up with yellow eyes, he says, Elspeth Spindle, let me out, and then the room bursts into flames. Who could it be? So she wakes up, and her arm is in agony, and I'm like, oh, this is, like, the first normal part of an injury.
Yeah. The fact that she broke her wrist. Of course it's an egg. Like, give her a fucking sling or something. Like, what do you do for a broken wrist in this weird ancient time that's like the 1700s, but also magic?
Sorry.
What did they do? Hang on. Wait for it. Okay. What did they do for broken bones in the 1700s? Okay, immobilization and splinting. often using materials like plaster of Paris or wood.
Makes sense.
Now, I don't know if this is modeled after the 1700s. I just picked an old day, an old year.
An old day.
Well, an old era.
Ye old day.
But they need to immobilize and splint it. Not just, like, wrap a bandage around it. What the hell is that gonna do?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting heated.
I'd like, even if they mention that they, like, put a piece of wood in the bandage or something, like, that would be splinting it. Or at least helping. But the other thing, too, is she looks in the mirror and her body is just completely covered in bruises because she also fell off of a horse before she even started this whole thing. Before they even had their battles, she, like, tumbled off a horse and, like, almost knocked herself out, so.
Before they left.
So she's fucked. And she also has a bruise on her face from her father. And I guess she's just, like, checking out her injuries in the mirror, and then for a second she sees a creature with fur, and a tail and pointed ears and yellow eyes, and she's like, ah, and then he's gone. Interesting. But we also get that her eyes are like a charcoal color, and her aunt once told her that they were a beautiful dark window into her soul, which also very close to the title of the book. But
yeah, I think they dropped it a couple of times.
Yeah. She wonders whose soul it's a window to, the nightmare or her soul. So she goes to meet Ravyn, who checks her wrist, and it's swollen and bruised, and he tells her it isn't as scary as it looks, because now he's a doctor, I guess. And she says that she's not easily frightened. And she then says that she is actually frightened of the king's physicians and the destriers. And he's like, all destriers? And she says that he doesn't qualify as a destrier. He's actually a highwayman, which I guess is flirting and cute.
So Hauth has a destrier card and his scythe card, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So does Elm. He has a destrier and a scythe.
So do we think the degeneration is different based on the card, or is it just based on the human? Like, is their degeneration using the scythe card different than what it would be using the destrier card?
Yes.
Or using
we know that because you listed them all before. All the side effects of the cards.
Yeah, but like...
Do you mean is it different person to person?
I was thinking of magic. Like, you know how, like, Emery is degenerating, and, like, she doesn't know how she's degenerating, and then, like, they use magic, so they're degenerating.
Yeah.
So, but never mind. My question was stupid.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
So
I didn't think it through.
The cards don't really degenerate the people. It's more like temporary degeneration, I guess. So it's like, with the scythe, you get a lot of pain, but it goes away as soon as you stop using it. Ione just shows up and interrupts them, and we're like, why the fuck is Ione here? But they go to the parlor, and Moret, Ravyn, and Elspeth and Ione just, like, sit around, and Ione is still using the maiden card and looks completely beautiful, but Elspeth knows that she doesn't have the maiden card on her, which is dangerous because, like, you can't turn a card off if you don't have it, so she's left it somewhere, which is a choice. And Elspeth tells her that she looks lovely, and Ione says that engagement suits her, and it's a shame her new life hasn't done the same for her. Elspeth's new life hasn't done the same for her. And she looks at her bruised cheek, and the nightmare just tells Elspeth that, like, that's the cold-heartedness of using the card. So if you use the maiden card too long, you start becoming more cold-hearted. and stop
Yes.
feeling things. So they're noticing some of that.
You know, it would be really funny. So, like, Ione doesn't have the card, right? Wouldn't it be funny if someone else went and took it and tapped it 3 times, and like Ione was in the middle of doing something important and just all of a sudden like went back to her normal self in the middle of like what if it was like in the middle of her wedding?
Oh no, that would be so sad, but hilarious. That would be good.
Anyway, it was just funny. Funny thought of mine.
No, I like it. Ione just like kind of talks, and Elspeth just is staring at Ravyn and misses what she said. But Ione is asking what happened to her arm, and she just says that she fell off of a horse. And Ione responds, "Of course you did." And you're immediately like, "How does she know? She knows something, and how does she know it?" Elm just like saunters into the room and tells Ravyn they're here. And Moret kind of like cuts him off before he can say anything else to say that they have a guest. And Elm turns and is just like, "What are you doing here?" in like kind of a rude way. And you're like, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a past or something here. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But she says she came to talk to Hauth. And he and the destriers are coming to train. And Elspeth just says that she thought that Ione came to see her. And Ione just is like, "Yeah, 2 birds, 1 stone." Okay, that's
an
mean.
interesting way to put meeting up with your cousin.
And your fiance, I guess. Betrothed. And she says that she also wanted to see Castle U because she used to think it was haunted when she was a little girl. And Elm is just like, "Who says it isn't haunted?" Which is fun. Love a good haunting.
Yes.
So then our next chapter card, we get a man is not measured by magic alone. His scruples must extend beyond infection, beyond providence cards. Rather, how he wields magic shall determine his character. Does he keep our words? Does he bear his seal with loyal intent? Or is his heart overgrown as the depths of the wood, full of darkness and thorns? A man is not measured by magic alone. Like, are you a shitty person, I guess?
Yeah. But, like, I wonder, I know you already know the answer, but, like, Nightmare keeps making, like, repeated sort of mentions of, like, I don't know, it just feels like a recurring theme about how, like, people use the cards and how they should be using them, like, not, like, and be good people. It seems like it's like a reoccurring theme that Nightmare sort of like picks up on that and comments on it. So like I wonder what his like real life, like when he was a real person, like I just wonder where that's gonna go.
Yeah, makes sense. Can't say anything. Ione asks Elspeth if she heard that Hauth was attacked last night, and she's like, "No, how would I know that?" And then Ione kind of changes the subject and says that she was surprised to hear that Elspeth and Ravyn are courting, and that there's much that, and this is the like, I guess ironic or hypocritical part, but she says there's much that Elspeth doesn't know about powerful men, and she worries for her. And I'm just like, Elspeth literally told you at the beginning of this book not to fuck with the prince, and now you're warning her away from men. Like, I think if you said you get to make your own choices and you completely ignored her, then you can't really go down this route either.
Ione, and I know we don't have the whole thing yet, but she's very bothering me.
That's fair. I will say she's a big part of the second book. Not in a bad way. But Elspeth thinks that, like, Ione sounds super cold, which is obviously, like, the card thing.
Yeah, but, like, her, just, I'm just starting to feel bad for her because her whole family, essentially, especially now that Ione is like stone cold bitch, like her entire family treats her like garbage.
Yeah.
And it's just hurtful.
Mm-hmm. So they walk outside, and 10 destriers and Hauth are there. And Elspeth sees like 4 claw marks that look like they came from an animal down Hauth's face. And she's like, did I do that?
Oh my god. Is it a Steve Urkel moment?
It is, yeah. And the nightmare says if she needs to ask, then she's not ready to know. Like, ugh. And Ravyn stands next to her and like brushes his hand on hers and says that then he like talks to everybody and he calls that like since 4 men, including the prince, defied his orders and were ambushed, and like Hauth is currently unnerved, then now they're here to do some training because clearly they fucked up. Elm says that Hauth should be unnerved since it looks like someone took a piece out of him. And Hauth asks where Jesper is, and Ravyn says that she's sick, and Hauth kind of tries to argue that she should get up, but like she twisted her ankle last night, so that's why, I'm assuming. And Elspeth sees Ione look at Hauth with hatred, which is like, she's super cold, but she's clearly showing hatred towards him, which is interesting. But then Ione introduces Elspeth, and Hauth says that they met at Stone, and she's the reason it's so hard to find Ravyn lately. Of course.
Ugh.
Hauth then kind of explains, I guess, to everybody that they were ambushed, and Elspeth knows that he heard her scream when he broke her arm, but he starts telling the story of how, like, somebody attacked him, and he keeps calling the person a he, even though he for sure heard her scream, which was feminine. But the nightmare says that it's likely his pride. And they ask if he got a good look at the highwayman, and he says he caught him and broke his wrist. And Ione just immediately looks at Elspeth's wrist, and you're like, she knows. Or she's like, I don't know what she's thinking. And then Hauth says that the highwayman must have had blades in his glove because he slashed his face. And Elm says he's surprised he let someone best him and ruin his pretty face. And Ione hides a smile at that, and Elm notices that and smiles even bigger. You're like, interesting. Hauth says he'll have his fun when he catches the highwayman.
I feel like he must know. He must know. You know what I mean? Like, he has to know that it was her.
But it's also like, it's so easy to just take out your psi card and be like, was it you? Tell me what you did last night. Tell me what you did last summer. Like,
I know what you did last summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
I just don't see how it's, because, like, we're about to find out that he hurt her. He knows that her wrist is hurt. And, like, he broke it last night. Like, how can he not? It's literally not even putting 2 and 2 together to make 4. It's putting 1 and 1 together to make 2.
Yes, it is. And then also this whole situation of, like, it's a who hurt you moment type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Ravyn tells Hauth that they'll demonstrate to everybody, but Hauth is like, no, use Lyndon. But Lyndon says he's not sparring with the infected bastard. So I'm assuming, like, all the destriers just know that he has the infection, which is just, like, wild. But Elm asks if Hauth is scared, so obviously his pride makes him do it. And Ravyn just, like, throws in little tidbits about fighting highwaymen while he's kicking Hauth's ass. But he says that highwaymen don't fight with the law in mind, and he or she, and I'm like, you shouldn't say she. You're like, rubbing it in his face, but that he or she may carry the infection and they can be far more formidable than the mask shows. Hauth taps his black horse, and Ravyn says, watch his hands, about a highwayman, because he may have a knife. A knife to you with one hand, but then be picking your pocket with the other. And he slaps Hauth's hand away, and then slaps his face and, splits his scabs open. And then he tells them to use their speed and accuracy, i.e. the black horse. And Elspeth just, whispers to Elm that she thought that you couldn't use cards against Ravyn, but Elm says that, Hauth can't use the scythe against him because it wouldn't work, but Hauth is able to use his black horse to enhance himself and then fight Ravyn.
Yeah.
Because that's not using the card against him, that's using his card on himself.
And Ravyn can't use a black horse card.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. Ravyn then tells him that highwaymen are lethal in packs and to separate them. And he closes his eyes and ends up pulling Hauth down by his cloak while he's fighting him. So, we get that Ravyn is a much better fighter even without a black horse. And Ravyn tells them that anonymity, that's a hard word, is the highwayman's greatest advantage. But if you tear it away, you've already killed him. And then Ione says, or her.
Oh, dear God, Ione, you're not helpful.
But I think she kind of whispers it to Elspeth. I don't think she says it out loud. Hauth takes a knife out then, and Elm yells out to Ravyn to get on with it, and Ione and Elm smile while they're watching Hauth get the shit kicked out of him. Ravyn ends up taunting him, and he throws the dagger, but just cuts his shirt and doesn't make him bleed. But Ravyn kicks him in the ribs and then stomps on his hand, and there's a loud crack. And Ione laughs. You probably shouldn't.
Who laugh at your, fiance getting hurt?
Yeah. That's not very smart.
Especially since they only got engaged, yesterday.
Yeah. This is new.
I'm have they ever met before?
I don't think so. But 3 destriers then have to pull Ravyn away from him, and it's obviously you're beating the shit out of him for more reasons than just showing people how to fight. It's clearly revenge. You're being dumb. Ione just says he'll live and then walks away. And Elspeth asks Elm what happened. And Elm says that Hauth broke her wrist and Ravyn mangled his hand for balance. And you're that's crazy. Later, she's on her way to her room, and she hears Elm and Ravyn talking about her, and Elm says they have no idea what happened, or anything about her abilities. And Ravyn cuts in that her abilities are incredible, and she saved Elm. And he says Hauth looked like he was attacked by an animal, not a woman.
Yes.
Which is true. And Elm says that Ravyn should use the nightmare card on her to figure out what the fuck is going on. But Ravyn says she hasn't consented, and Elm says she's hiding something, and Ravyn says that she's had her whole life to hide, and he understands, but Elm's just nah, it's not good enough. And
Yikes.
Elm then tells him that breaking Hauth's hand was foolish, and not to let his guard down. And Elspeth just tries to go into her room without making it obvious that she was eavesdropping. But of course, she makes too much noise. And then Ravyn is immediately knocking at her door. And he tells her he's sorry about today and having to see Hauth so soon after he broke her wrist. And he says that the hand wasn't about her. But then he says, or it was, but also they have a hostile relationship anyway. And Hauth actually hates the infection more than most.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Ravyn is captain is something that he can't handle.
Yeah, it's a problem for him.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And Hauth was actually the one who told the king about Ravyn's infection, and then, I guess, years later about Elm's infection. And then he says he wants to show her something.
Elm's infection? I just forget. What is his magic again?
Oh, not Elm. Sorry, Emery.
I was gonna say, I was like,
Elm's not infected.
Did I miss something?
No, I meant Emery.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got
Elm's
really
not infected.
confused. I was like, I didn't realize.
And then years later, I said it so confidently. And then years later, his younger brother. No. And then Emery's infection. Yeah. And then he says he wants to show her something. And then we get another chapter card. Magic born of the infection is immeasurable, unfathomable. It owns no loyalty, keeps no rules. For some, it carries great unyielding power. For others, darkness and degeneration await. Magic born of the infection is immeasurable. Fun.
That is fun.
Yeah. So I guess, like, you go into the mist, you get the infection, and then if you live, you end up with magic.
Oh, so do you have to go into the mist to get the infection?
I think so.
So,
But you have to survive. So, like, you'd have to leave, but it's hard to leave once you're in there. So I don't know.
I find this all very complex.
It is very complex.
My brain doesn't like it.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. I feel like if I try to say more about it, I'll get into spoilers. So.
Okay. All right. Stop.
I will. So, Ravyn takes her to the ruins, and the nightmare tells her to go inside, and she asks Ravyn, like, what they're doing, and he's like, we're going inside, and she's like, oh, I guess so. So he, like, swings himself through the window and then reaches for her, and I'm like, what about her broken wrist in this moment? We're not getting, like, does he just pull her up by one arm because she has a broken wrist? But we don't get that. He pulls her in, though, and she feels magic inside, and the nightmare, like, is pushing her to get in the room, basically.
Yeah.
But she actually recognizes the room from her dreams. And the nightmare basically tells her that it is the room she dreamed about. And she asks who the knight was, and he says, a place of time, a man of fault, both fueled by rage, both buried in salt. We're like, girl, you know who it is.
Yeah, we all know who it is. Why else would she be having memories of a certain someone?
Exactly. But back to the present. Ravyn says he used to play here when he was a boy, and one time he cut his palm and ended up getting some blood on the stone, and then the slab in the middle opened up. So he cuts his hand here and puts it over the slab of stone, and she sees cards. So she gets that, like, his blood actually unlocks a hidey hole that they've hidden their cards in. So he takes them out, and he tells her that when he was a kid, he actually found the nightmare and the mirror card inside of this. And now they just keep all of the rest of them there that they don't have out most of the time. So obviously, like, they don't have a nightmare. They don't have a Black Horse card. And they don't have a side card in this pile because Jesper and Elm keep them with them all the time.
Right.
But those are technically part of their collection. The nightmare tells her that the spirit bartered in blood, so the Shepherd King built her this chamber and this altar to barter with her. And she asks the nightmare how he knows that, and he's just silent. I'm like, girl, come on. Ravyn tells her that she's the only one who can open this if something happens to him because it needs infected blood. So that's why he's showing it to her. And she asks why he can only use the nightmare and mirror card. And he tells her that he was 13 when he caught the fever, which is older than most. And he actually thought he didn't have any magic, but at 14 he was offered the black horse, and to become a destrier, I guess, and it didn't work. So Hauth then told the king that he was infected because he couldn't use the card.
Yeah.
The king saw value in his magic, and he actually trained harder to be better without the card than everybody else. And then the chalice didn't work on him, so I guess somebody tried it, and now no one can see him in the well, and people can't use the scythe card on him. And that's why he's been made the captain, because the king knows that he can't, I guess, be manipulated with any cards. And he tells her that every year he actually loses one of the card's ability. And I'm guessing it's just going in descending order. So, like, the Dark Horse is 12 of them, sorry. So I'm guessing it's like, now he can only use the Nightmare, which are 2, and the Mirror, I'm assuming there's only 3, so he can only use those 2 cards, and we assume the Twin Alder, because that's the card that's 1.
Yeah.
And then he tells her if they don't collect the deck, he'll eventually not be able to use any cards. And, like, that's his degeneration. So, like...
But, like...
It's not that bad.
No. Like, big whoop, you can't use magic. Cry about it.
Emery's fucking dying.
Yeah.
Like, but he tells her that he only really talks to Elm about it, and she's surprised because she says he's a Rowan. But Ravyn says that he's loyal to a fault. And he kind of tells her a bit about Elm's, I guess, backstory, but he says that he was mistreated at Stone by Hauth, so Ravyn brought him home to his parents, and they became Elm's parents, and Elm would basically die before he would betray them. And I'm like, are we sure? Is that what we're sure of? We're going with that?
Oh my
so
god,
does
he?
Or am I misdirecting?
Oh no, I don't like this. I don't want him to betray them. I kind of like Elm. It's kind of like a love triangle in my head, even though there's been no, like... There hasn't really been a cause for it, but I like Elm. I don't want him to be an asshole. Oh, am I gonna have to Google it?
No, you're not gonna have to Google it. So Ravyn puts the cards back and he goes to seal the slab, but she tells him to let her do it because she, like, wants to know that her blood will actually do it, I guess. So he agrees, but he tells her it doesn't take much blood, so there's no need to scar her beautiful hands. Cute. And then he cuts her palm, but she barely feels the pain because he's
touching her.
Touching her, of course. And then he covers the cut with his hand, and she pushes the hair out of his face. And he tells her her heart is racing, and she says she doesn't know why. And he says, don't you? And then he cups her face and traces her lips. And he asks if this is her pretending, because if so, she's very good. And she says, no better than you. And he puts her hand on his chest and asks if it feels like he's pretending. And they kiss, and he grabs her hair, and she grabs his face, and she isn't gentle, and she wants this, and he does too, and, like, she rubs up against him, and he's super hard. Because, of course. And then he's, like, kissing her neck and nipping at her earlobes, and she's loving it, but then she, like, opens her eyes and just sees the golden knight in the in this room with them. And she's just like, what the fuck? And then the knight says, Elspeth Spindle, let me out. And she pulls away from Ravyn, but then the knight is just gone. And she says she's sorry, and she just bolts because she's afraid to see the knight again. And I'm just like, terrible timing. what the fuck?
Yeah.
So she gets out of the mist and she asks the nightmare what's happening, and he says he's a vestige of the past haunting the chamber, and he built it for the spirit of the wood, and he's nothing more than a memory of a man who once was. And then he says, a man I once was. And we're like, finally, he's making her acknowledge that he's actually the same man. So she gets to her room. Yeah. She gets to her room and she sees the carpet on the floor with the knight on it that she assumed was the Shepherd King. And then in the background of this giant tapestry thing on the floor, carpet thing, she sees the room with the one dark window. And she thinks that, like, she actually assumed that the nightmare in her head was the creature from the card, but she forgot what the book said. And I quote, "But it felt incomplete, my collection yet whole, and so for the nightmare I bartered my soul." And she, like, I guess thinks or says to the nightmare that that would mean she absorbed his soul, and he's the Shepherd King. And he says, with his voice stronger than ever, "Finally, my darling Elspeth, we understand one another."
Ooh.
So she has the Shepherd King's soul inside of her head for the last,
11 years.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Great.
So the next, I guess, I don't even know what we're calling them. Card?
Yeah.
Says, practice restraint and know it by touch. Use cards when they're needed and never too much. For too much of fire, our swords would all break. Too much of wine, a poison doth make. Excess is grievous, be knave made or crown. Too much of water, how easy we drown. So, it's just a warning not to use too much magic.
Yeah.
So, Elspeth wakes up to someone waking her up, and it turns out she was asleep, obviously, in her nightgown, except she was outside in the garden.
Yeah.
Nearby the temple that she was in last night with Ravyn. The person that woke her up is Philip Willow, who's a physician. So, she did not remember sleepwalking, and, she's sort of probing at Nightmare. I don't know what to call him. Nightmare? Shepherd King?
Yeah, I still call him the Nightmare.
Anyway, so Nightmare was sort of, curled up in her head all quiet, and, she could tell that he didn't seem to want to give any explanations for her being asleep in the meadow.
Yeah.
Philip is like, "Oh my god, have you been out here all night? You're freezing cold. Come into my room and have a cup of tea." So he wraps her in his cloak. They go back to his room and sit by the fire and have tea so she can warm up. And he was like, "Do you sleepwalk very often?" And she's just like, "No." She should have said yes. Why is she saying no? That seems silly to me. If you want to hide that you have somebody in your brain taking over your body at some point, you should probably lie. Anyway, so she's like, no. And then he's like, "Have you ever been to those ruins before?" And I'm like, why does that matter? But she just asks him, she asks him what the magic stone is that Ravyn showed her. But Philip says he doesn't really know, only that the castle is old and full of artifacts, and they all have, strange ancient magic. So,
Interesting.
Yeah. And I guess she sort of makes a comment that he makes a lot of, he puts a lot of stock in old magic for a physician. So physicians, I guess, are supposed to only believe in the cards as magic and, not anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he's, talking about artifacts having magic is ooh. But he just said that, his family's always been physicians, but, way back with the Shepherd King, they used to worship the spirit of the wood, and they used to treat those that got the fever. They wouldn't hunt them down.
Mm-hmm.
And Elspeth's like, well, what changed? But Philip he doesn't really know. He just says, the histories were lost. Like anything that was written in books has been lost. But oral stories have been passed down. So he has a theory. And he tells her that the spirit of the wood gave the Shepherd King so much power that he created the Providence cards. So people ended up stopping going to see her for gifts. Instead, they went to him and they vied for his cards. Because that was a type of magic that wouldn't degenerate. I guess they didn't realize at the time that there were negatives.
Yeah. I just think the negatives are also so temporary. They're not, like, gonna kill you.
Right.
Although, Ravens is not even that bad.
Yeah. So, I guess they wanted something that was a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
So that's why the Spirit of the Wood created the mist, because she wanted to draw her people back to her. The mist also locked Boulder from the rest of the world. So now we're sort of getting that they literally exist on their own. The Shepherd King went into the woods to bargain with the spirit for Boulder's freedom and came back out and wrote the old Book of Alders so the people of Boulder could ward themselves with charms against the mist. However, he bargained away the Twin Alders before he even knew he needed the card to lift the mist. So essentially the Spirit of the Wood tricked him. She said, I will tell you how to lift the mist if you give me that Twin Alders card. He gave her the Twin Alders card and she said, you need to reunite the deck. So,
yeah.
Genius move on her part, actually.
100%.
So the first, so we get that the spirit sort of tricked him. And that's sort of the story of, I guess, the cards and all that. However,
Shepherd King and
yeah. However, when the first Rowan King sat on the throne, he took the old Book of Alders and twisted the words and made them more of a doctrine. So people began to fear those that became infected, which is why physicians are different now. So he's sort of placing blame on the first Rowan King. Elspeth sort of asked why Brutus Rowan, who was the first Rowan King, would hate the infection, and Philip tells her that maybe he feared a magic he couldn't control, or maybe he just wanted to steal the throne from an infected king. But now his lineage seeks to destroy anyone with enough magic to take it back. So, is this really about the health and wellness of the community, or is it a straight up power play? So she asks, okay, well then what happened to the Shepherd King? And Felix he died, but no one knows how. But then he's like, I mean, all this is just a story. All this is just a maybe. So why are you getting it? Why do you want this information, essentially? And then Nightmare laughs so dark in her head that she loses her sight and realizes that whatever happened 500 years ago matters a whole lot. So it does matter.
Not great.
No. So Philip sort of reassures her that she and Ravyn will find the Twin Alders and reunite the deck. And she doesn't really believe it, but she's going with it.
Well, realistically, you'd think she'd be like, yeah, I'm your best bet at this shit.
Yeah.
I have information that nobody's had for 500 years.
True point. So before she leaves his room, she asks him about degeneration. She says I don't know what my degeneration is. And he's like, yeah, me neither, because it's different for every single person. So I can't even tell you what yours is. And I guess there's no way to test it.
Yeah.
So then she leaves her room and leaves his room, starts to head back to her own. And she gets mad at Nightmare for sleepwalking her and having her sleep in the meadow. And then she gets mad and calls him a monster. And then he tells her he is both king and monster, and doesn't she remember their story? And I'm like, what story? Just the one where he helped her out in the woods when she was 11, a kid? I don't understand what he's talking about.
It's one that he says often. He says, a girl, whatever, and good, and then a king, whatever, and then the monster they became.
Yeah. I just am so confused. But anyway, I guess maybe it'll make sense on my second read through.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay. So she asks why she's only now seeing his memories. And he tells her that she has her own theory. And she's like, stop, like, just give me a straight answer. Just, like, stop teasing me and just give me a straight answer. And he's like, no, I want you draw your own conclusions. And, like, I would hate that. If there was someone in my head who knew something and wasn't telling me, then...
You'd just go crazy.
Yeah. So then she realizes that every time she asks for his help, he becomes stronger and she becomes weaker. So, like, this is her degeneration. She is slowly fading away every time she uses his magic. And I'm, like, in my head just thinking, so stop using his fucking magic. Like, it's not hard not to ask for his help. Like, just stop putting yourself in situations where you're in danger and then you won't need to ask him for help anymore.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But is it too late for that?
Ugh. Anyway, she gets mad at him because he's taking over her body and mind. But he gets mad back because he's like, I'm only taking what you're willingly giving me. And, like, I can't take anything from you. And then he just sort of fades away. And then she goes to her room. But, like, there are a bunch of destriers hanging out in the main hall. And Hauth is there. And Elm then sneaks up behind her. And he's like, what were you doing? And, like, he doesn't trust her, so obviously he thinks it's something untrustworthy that she was doing.
She's like, I was asleep outside. She doesn't say that, but, like...
She doesn't. She probably should have. Instead, she's like, I got lost. It's like, that's not believable. Make it believable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like, oh, I got lost. And he gives her directions back to her room. And tells her to put on her colors. And she's like, why? He's like, oh, it's market day. But then he just says something assholey at the end. He just says, like, put on your market colors if your dad ever deigned to give you any. And I'm like, that is unnecessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next sort of chapter card says, tell them the truth. When your children ask, do not lie. Do not hide the risk of magic. Children are strongest when their eyes are clear. Only then can they make their own choices. Only then are they truly free. Tell them the truth. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm like, is it warning them not to go into the woods? Like, I don't really understand what truth.
Yeah.
Like, don't go into the mist? And they
know.
can make their own choice to try to get magic? Like, because if somebody told me, don't go in the mist, you'll get a fever, and then you might end up with magic, I'd be like, into the mist I go!
Yeah, I don't know. I just find it a little bit of, like, I was wondering if maybe you, having read it, all of it, would have, like, insight into it. But I find these chapter cards a little bit confusing because sometimes they're very relevant and other times they're really confusing.
Yeah. Well, I guess, like, all of these children that got the sickness and now have magic and are being
killed,
like, they all have to have gone into the mist. Like,
did they go?
I think that's how you get it.
I thought it was just a chance.
No, I think it's from the mist.
Because they all have charms when they go into the mist.
Yeah, so if you don't have a charm and you go into the mist, but then
you go crazy.
Jesper was fine after she got a charm. So you'd think, like, if you came out of the mist, you'd be fine. I don't really know. And it's not. I still don't know.
Great. Anyway, so she's getting ready for market day and she has to wear her house colors. So obviously that is her dad's family, not her aunt and uncle, and not Ravyn's family. She's not officially a part of it.
Yet.
So she puts on her mother's dress. Obviously it's deep red with a golden spindle tree on it. It feels, when they describe it, it feels very like Renaissance.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it's like red velvet and there's really long drapey sleeves that manages to hide up her bandaged broken wrist. Because bandages do so much for a broken wrist.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm never gonna get over this. This is the hill I am dying on.
No, it was something I noticed my first read was just like, she's it's only mentioned when it's relevant. Like, she's doing so much all the time, and it's only mentioned, like, when she's seeing Hauth or something like that. It's like when she's running away and jumping through a window from Ravyn a few chapters ago, she just did it.
Dealt with it.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't she be in excruciating pain? She has a broken wrist. How did she jump out of the window? He had to haul her in there.
Did she, like, jump out of it, like, are we thinking, like hurdles? Like someone doing track and doing hurdles. Maybe she went, ee! Like that.
Maybe. It's the only, I guess, yeah. Because I'm like, it's high enough that he had to pull her up.
Yeah, but maybe it's high up there and then it's low, so maybe she just had to, like, scoot out and land on her legs.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, you could be right. But still, I was like, when she's running away from it,
you would still brace yourself on your your arms, right?
Yeah, you'd be like
that. You're pushing off with your arms.
Yeah. And, like, I don't remember which arm it is. Like, is it her dominant arm? I don't know.
I haven't paid that much attention.
I don't think it tells us.
No. Anyway, so she puts her dress on, she goes downstairs, and Jesper tells her she looks nice. But Elspeth's like, I don't have a mask. And apparently it's traditional to wear a mask on market day.
Which seems wild. Are you trying to get people to steal shit? Like,
I don't... this whole... I'm not gonna lie, this whole tradition is weird.
Yeah.
So they find one for her, and of course it doesn't match her dress. Her mask is green, and her dress is red. It's like Christmas.
But maybe they don't have Christmas, so it's not as jarring as we are.
I guess. I just, that really bothers me too, that it doesn't match. Like, find her one that matches, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You also just think she'd have one that would match if she's gonna have...
Yeah, like, she's staying there. Why wouldn't she bring a mask? If it's a thing to wear a mask on market day, and she knows she's going to stay with them for a while, she knew she was going to Stone for Equinox, like, why wouldn't you just pack a mask? Like, do I always need a bathing suit when I'm going on vacation? No. Do I usually pack one anyway just in case? Yes.
Always.
So, like, why couldn't she take that? Like, anyway, I'm gonna get angry, so, like, because she packed the dress.
Yeah.
Her family dress. So why would you, if it's normal to wear the dress, your family colors with a mask, why would you not pack the mask to go with the dress?
You would pack it.
Ugh. Anyway, I think I'm getting very frustrated with this book. Seems to be a running theme.
That's fair.
Anyway, so they get her a mask. Then they go out, I guess, to the courtyard, and they find Ione and Hauth and Ravyn and Elm. And, of course, they're all speechless at how beautiful she is, even though her dress is sort of old school, because it was her mom's.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit old-fashioned, but they're like, oh my god, you're stunning. What's it called, like, hot girl stunning? Is that...
Hot girl summer?
No. There's a saying that's like, blank girl stunning, and I don't know what it is.
Oh. I'm not up on
the
hip talk.
The hip talk. Okay. So Hauth, like, flirts with her. He takes her wrist, or he takes her hand, and he kisses it, and, like, it's not her broken wrist, thank God.
So greasy. That
yeah.
man.
Yeah. So he flirts with her, but Elspeth can just tell, like, he's not actually interested in her as a human. He's just flirting with her to get under Ravyn's skin because he thinks that Ravyn has a thing for her. So she looks at Ravyn, who looks pissed that Hauth is
Because he does have a thing for her.
He does have a thing for her, yes. But anyway, so she's, like, really drawn to him, and there's something between them. So obviously he is the love interest, I'm assuming. Stop it. Stop shrugging your shoulders. Just admit when I'm right.
Can't do.
Ugh. And she just thinks that, like, they're drawn to each other because they're the same. They're gifted with magic, and they are the things to be feared, and, like, they are the balance that their town needs. Hauth asks her, like, what she sees in Ravyn, and this is, like, my favorite thing, is she obviously can't tell him that. She can't say, oh, I'm drawn to him because we're similar, we both have magic. She can't say that, and she also knows that them being together is a ruse for everyone, so, like, she doesn't want to give him a genuine compliment, and, like, let on that she actually does, like, have feelings for him, because I think she does.
Yeah.
So she just says he's very tall. And I kind of love it.
Yeah.
Because he's taller than Hauth.
Yeah.
So, like, Hauth even tries to, like, straighten up. But, like, obviously it's not gonna work.
You can't make yourself taller.
No, you cannot. So Ravyn then, like, tries to take her arm and escort her away. But Hauth grabs her broken wrist.
Of course.
To ask her to save him a turn about the square, which feels very Pride and Prejudice.
It does, yeah.
And she, like, winces in pain because he has her broken wrist. And he asks, like, what happened? And he looks really suspicious. And she freaks out because she's like, oh, shit, what do I do? She's freaking out. She can't think of anything. Ravyn freezes, and, like, they're both freaking out. And then Ione steps in and lies and says that Elspeth fell off her horse when they were out riding the previous morning.
Yeah.
So, I thought that Equinox, like, the whole thing at Stone was, like, a multi-day affair.
Yes.
So why is everybody not there? Like, I get Ravyn and them left because they want to be clandestine and, like, they took her with them for the ruse. But wouldn't, like, the rest of them still be celebrating at Equinox in Stone at the castle? Why are they all, like, the dad was on the road, the rando with the card was on the road, Hauth was on the road, now Hauth and Ione are here at Castle U, like, are they staying at Castle? I don't understand. It feels so chaotic.
I think that the end of the Equinox celebration was when the guy with the Iron Gate left, and they met, like, that was them leaving at the end of it. They just left, like, a day early.
Oh, all right.
I think. I don't know.
Fine.
That's what I assumed.
Okay. So, after Ione makes that excuse for Elspeth, Hauth looks at her with a cold glare. So, like, obviously he don't like her.
His wife.
Yeah, his future wife, yeah.
And her, too. Sorry.
Yeah, she doesn't like him either.
Yeah.
But, like, also, Elspeth is like, shit, she's already cold. Like, I wonder why she lied for me. Because, like, she did, and she did it without asking. And she was like, oh, this is sort of the remnant of the girl I knew, but, like, she can tell that she's sort of got ulterior motives, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what they are yet. So before it can sort of evolve into something else, Jesper and Elm swoop in and make excuses and just drag them apart, and then they just go to start Market Day. So essentially they just go to the city center, and, like, it's just, like, a day to barter and trade, and all the vendors are, like, open for business, like...
But They're all wearing masks.
Yeah, it's weird. So, like, obviously she was nervous after they, like, started walking away. She's, like, freaking out, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And she's like, do you think Hauth recognized my injury? And Elm's just like, he's not that smart. But then also says, like, wipe the nerves off your face. Because obviously you look guilty. He's gonna think something's up.
Yeah.
So they walk past her father's house. And, like, this is what I mean. Like, it seemed at the beginning as if everything was really far apart. Like, it seemed like her father's house and, like, her uncle's house were, like, in the same little village. But it seemed like Stone, where the king lives, is, like, really far away. It just seemed like everything is really far away. But now they're just walking everywhere. So it's like, everybody just neighbors.
Well, she said earlier that her father was just down the street from Raven's family, the Hughes.
But, like, didn't she walk from her uncle's house with Ione to her dad's house for her birthday?
Yeah, through the woods. And it seemed like that one, I felt like that one was supposed to be further away than Stone is from either of those. From, like, the Hughes house or her father's house.
It just seems all too close for me.
Yeah.
How can you be sneaky when people are just right there?
Well, I feel like they've never... I guess they did walk to Stone, but did they walk to Stone from her aunt and uncle's house? Like, is that like a pilgrimage that...
I thought they got a carriage.
They might have got, like, a carriage to, like, the entrance or something and then walked.
Mm.
But... Because anytime they talk about going from, like, Stone to the Hughes house, it's always, like, they got a carriage and they got, like, later on there's horse riding from that distance. So, like, that has to be pretty far. But you would think that Stone would be closer to, like, the center town than it seems like.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Anyway, so they walk past her father's house and she wants to go steal the well card because that's really the only one they're missing besides the twin elders at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Elm just tells her, like, now is not the time. And he's like, we need to act like everyone else to keep suspicions off of them. Like, if they disappear and then all of a sudden the car goes missing, you know, you're gonna know.
Yeah. I did think, though, like, it's her father's house. If she went to go be like, I need to get something from my old room. Like, anything.
I guess, but it's been 11 years at this point, so, like, what's left for her to retrieve?
Well, yeah. Or, like, my father asked me to pick something up.
Yeah. So, yeah, she doesn't like that he's correct. She's like, oh, fine. So her, like, I guess Elm leaves her then with Jesper, and they wander around the stalls, and she, like, is desperate to tell Jesper that she's running out of time, that she's, like, got a degeneration, and, you know, that she's being taken over, but she doesn't. She keeps quiet. So then she wanders off by herself, and, like, she's contemplating her own demise and her own fading away, and wonders how it's going to be when Ravyn finds her. They talk, and she actually brings up the night before and how she ran away, and she wants to apologize, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells her, like, maybe it was a good idea that she did. And he tells her, like, there's a reason he resisted the idea of courting her when it was suggested. And then we find out that it's because he already imagined all the wicked things he wanted to do to her. And that he hasn't stopped thinking about her since the forest road when he tried to kill her or, like, rob her.
Yeah.
And the closer he lets himself get to her, the less he would want to be King's captain. And the less he would want to pretend. So he's sort of admitting that he has feelings for her. But of course, it's the age-old, it's dangerous to be close to me. So he just says it's dangerous for his family if he stops pretending. So, like, he's being very, I guess, like, he's keeping a lot of secrets and he's putting up a lot of pretenses to save his family.
Yeah.
So he's just saying, like, the closer he gets to her, the less he wants to do that. But he also said it's not safe for her to be close to him, because of course it isn't, because he's a traitor. And the highwayman always meets the hangman. So, like, that's another saying in this town.
Yeah, but it's also, like, she's
a highwayman too now.
She's the most suspicious of them all, really. She's the only one that Hauth is really focusing on. So it's like, you shouldn't want to be around her, because she's...
True.
She's going to get caught first.
Yeah. So she just tells him that the king keeps him close to control him, but, like, he is the only one that can withstand the king's card, and that, like, he is the reckoning. So he's the king's reckoning, I guess. So she puts her forehead against his, and she thinks, like, he'll be mad about what she said, but instead he hugs her, and she's, like, just marveling at such a tight hug, and she fits perfectly into his arms, and blah blah blah, and it's the most secure she's ever felt in someone, it's the safest she's ever felt in someone's arms, and, like, you know, all the typical stuff when two people hug. And of course, who comes and ruins the moment? Her dad, her stepmom, and her two half-sisters.
Of course.
And, like, I would be a little bit miffed if I was the dad.
Yeah.
Because, well, when they were talking about her coming to stay with them, the Raven's parents were like, I'm sure if we tell him that that it'll be, like, supervised, what do you call it, chaperoned all the time, they won't have any issues with it. They're not fucking chaperoned now, and they're hugging in public. That's not on. That's scandalous. You don't hug in public.
Is hugging scandalous?
I'm sure it is for these people.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, so her dad thinks that she looks just like her mother, and then him and Ravyn start chatting, and her sisters want to talk to her, and they're like, come, take a turn about the square. And, like, she doesn't really want to go, but she doesn't really have a reason to say no, and they just, like, scoop her up and take her. And they're, like, super shocked that she's courting the captain of the destriers. And they're super stressed because they're like, if he finds out that you have magic, that you were infected, we'll all be arrested just for keeping the secret.
Yeah.
And then they ask why they were hugging, and she doesn't want to talk about it. So she sees Elm, and she's like, oh, Elm, I have a favor to ask of you. And then the next minute, the two sisters are walking away giggling. So I'm assuming Elm used his card.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say, like, what he said or what he did. And it didn't specifically say he used his card. I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
So, then they talk. Her and Elm. And he just asks what her sisters wanted. And she tells him. And he responds that Ravyn won't arrest her, but he will find out what she is. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's acting all, like, coy. And he has her. He has her number. Because he just tells her that, like, when Ravyn looks at her, he feels like he knows her and he wants to help her. But, like, Elm sees someone with secrets. Because he's like, I know you're hiding something. Because he's like, what else explains your feats of strength?
Yeah.
He's like, you've lived sequestered away at your uncle's, and yet you could easily throw, was it him, across the road?
Yeah, him and Ravyn? It was both of them, really, I guess, in that moment. But
yeah.
And also, like, get the best of Hauth and shit.
Yeah. And, like, you know, they have... Hauth at least has a black horse card. So, like, how is it she's defeating these people with advanced combat training She's lived, like, hiding out. She's hid out in her uncle's house. Like, there's no way she's had advanced combat training enough to go up against them. And he says, plus, your eyes are black. Except, every once in a while, they're yellow.
You got it. You
he
got
is
everything.
100% correct. Anyway, and then she's also having a chat with Nightmare in her head. And he's like, let me speak to Elm. And she's like, no. And he's like, come on, he's already seen my yellow eyes, so we might as well. But she's like, no. And he's just like, this is the payment. Like, this is what happens when you ask for my help. And she doesn't really know what to say to Elm.
Yeah.
And he's trying to be like, hey, like, are you going to talk to me? Like, what's going on? When somebody yells, make way! Which, again, is just such an old-timey, like, thing to say. It's, like, very medieval Renaissance. Make way for the king! Elm finds a nearby destrier. I can't decide.
I know.
What's going on. And he tells him that there's an infected child that's been collected by physician Orith. And his parents have been arrested, and Hauth wants to make an example of them. So Orith, is it Willow?
Yeah.
I think. Is he Felix's brother, cousin?
They must be related in some way, or anybody that
is a Willow is a physician?
A physician is a Willow.
Oh.
But what's the other guy's name? Oric?
Philic
and Orith. I think last week I think it was, Orith said that his family was physicians. So
yeah,
it seems like a family thing, so they must be related somehow.
Yeah.
But they could be cousins, I guess.
Yeah.
Could be distant or...
Could be. Anyway, so all of a sudden, like, 5 destriers show up, and they have the parents with their hands tied up, and everyone is sort of, like, pushing and jostling to get a look. And, like, just like that, the joy of Market Day is gone. Like, it was this, like, thing where they could go around and get samples, and they were given, like, drinks, and, like, they could talk to each other and, like, socialize. Because they didn't just do that for, like, 3 or 4 fucking days at the castle. But anyway. So, just like that, like, oh, shit. Now these people are getting punished.
Yeah.
So, the card for this chapter says, soft sway the leaves of the willow tree fair. Its reeds are thus gentle, bended in prayer. No switch shall be crafted from branch, stalk, or bark. Its canopy waits respite from the dark. So too I demand the physician must be. His words whisper soft as breeze through a tree. From the white spring flower to the depths of his root, his wisdom is pure, his healing absolute. So, sort of not what physicians are like now.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like they've taken sort of a brutal stance when this card is saying they should be like, they should be wise, they should be like soft and whispery and, you know, just like helpful, it seems like.
Yeah.
So the destriers start to whip the man, the husband, and Elspeth obviously hates it. And Hauth then just addresses the crowd and talks about how the man and the woman betrayed everyone for hiding the infected child, and they're essentially traitors. And Elspeth sort of notices that the crowd, they're not like cheering or jeering. They're not like, yeah, they're traitors or anything like that. They don't support what Hauth is doing, but they're too afraid to stop it.
Yeah, well, what could you really do?
Well, yeah. So Hauth uses his card then to make the parents give him their charms, and he sentences them to death by walking into the mist, which we learned, I think, in week 1 that was a common punishment. And the destriers actually force the crowd to the edge of town to watch. And I guess before they are forced into the forest, a carriage comes down the road, and then 2 physicians in white step out, and they have a boy between them. And she asks Elm what will happen to the child, and obviously she already knows, but I guess it's for our benefit. He tells her that the child will be brought to the king, and if his magic isn't deemed useful, he will die, which is slightly different than what everybody thinks, right?
Yeah.
Like, the townspeople believe that children are, when they're taken, they're just dead. They're taken to the dungeons and killed or something like that. But Elm is sort of saying, well, no, the king needs to see if the magic is good first. If it's something
if it's useful for him.
Yeah.
Of course.
So like Elm doesn't think Hauth should be doing this in front of everyone, especially on market day, and just wonders where Ravyn is. So Orith brings out his claw that he uses to test blood. And I guess like that's his magic maybe? Doesn't he have that magic where he can
Yeah, he has
something.
He has magic that tests, like, he can tell who's infected, but I guess the claw is just to cut them.
Yeah. So he brings the claw to the boy's neck, and a drop falls, and that is enough for him to tell that the boy is infected. So he tells everyone that no matter when it happens, they will uncover every infection. And Hauth comes in and says that card magic is the only true magic. And, like, I just took this as a way that they are gatekeeping magic. Because, like, it's only the rich, noble people that can trade the cards. It's not the regular peoples. The, like, villagers, their only option for magic is through this infection.
Yeah.
So, like, they are actually gatekeeping magic from poor people so that they stay in power, which is just so typical.
Yeah.
So then he uses his card and he sends the parents into the mist, and he tells them to be wary, be clever, be good. And I'm like, that's a terrible thing to say as you are sending people to die.
Yeah. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah. So they head into the mist, and the mom immediately screams. And then Nightmare says a rhyme in Elspeth's head that essentially asks her what she did. Like, what is she going to do when children were taken? And, like, she knows she needs to act. So it's sort of like he's sort of being like, well, where were you when children were taken? As if, like, when you look back on this moment, what are you going to think?
Yeah. Very reminiscent of this day and age.
Yeah. Right? Like, are you helping people, or are you standing by and watching?
Yeah.
So she tells Elm that they have to do something, because Elm is still next to her, and he's actually been doing a pretty good job of keeping her close and making sure she stays with him. Elm doesn't want to risk, especially her, being noticed by Orith, because if
she's infected, and the king doesn't know. He knows the rest of them that they're infected. But, like, he knows Emery's infected, he knows Ravyn's infected.
Although, I do think it'd be safe to say that if he found out what her power was, he would keep it.
Yeah. It would be useful, but that doesn't mean it would be a good life.
No.
Because she's not related to him.
Yeah.
Because, like, all these kids that are taken away, even if they do have a power that's useful to him, he's clearly hiding them, or people would notice that they were, like, still around after they got killed.
Yeah. So Elm just, like, he's like, I don't want you being noticed by Orith. So she's like, give me your cloak. And so she puts it on over her, like, gigantic red dress with the super long sleeves, and apparently it covers it all up.
Because she's so small.
I'm like, is it a poncho? Like, I'm sorry, what kind of cloak doesn't open in the front?
I don't know.
Like, there's no way. It has to be sort of poncho style.
It just reminds me of...
to hide everything.
Yeah, it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, and is it the third one where they, like, throw the cloaks over themselves and then they look like boulders?
Yes. I think it's the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, I'm like, I guess it's just magic. That doesn't exist, but it's magic.
Yeah. Because she literally says, as she puts it on, she's like, and just like that, the red of my dress has disappeared because it's hiding, like, underneath this gigantic cloak. And yeah. I'm like, again, it must be a poncho, because if she's gonna start running or walking, it's gonna open a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a zipper. Anyway. Then she borrows his mask, too. And all of a sudden, she's no longer recognizable.
That's good.
So... Elm is, like, looking around for Ravyn, but she just tells him he's a strong magic user. He doesn't need Ravyn. So, he's like, oh, you're right, I guess. So he hauls out his card and he taps it, and then he stops the parents from advancing. And then he, like, makes himself known to Hauth and distracts him. And he just tells Elspeth to stay out of sight and not do anything stupid. Too late! So he confronts Hauth and just says, you've gone too far. And Hauth reminds him that he is allowed to sentence criminals and to withdraw his card. Like, he's telling Elm, he's like, withdraw your card. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm allowed to do this. But Elm's like, no. So then some guy named Lyndon, like, we find out a little bit later, he's a destrier, but, like...
Yeah, he came up a little earlier,
yeah.
But barely. He was one of the guys that was at the attack, and he hurt one of the Ivy brothers.
Yeah.
And he also called Ravyn an infected bastard.
Yeah, so he's Hauth's, like, bestie.
Yeah.
So he actually, like, just goes for Elm. And I'm like, Elm is also a prince. Would he not get in trouble for that?
Yeah, you're still much lower than him, so
yeah.
Maybe don't.
But he does. But Elm just stops him with the card. So right now he's using the card on the two parents and on Lyndon. So, like, he's definitely using too much magic. Mm-hmm. And his nose starts bleeding. So there's the physical pain that we're talking about. So, like, Hauth is about to step in and act when Ravyn and Jesper enter on scene. So, like, where the hell were they?
No idea.
That distraction, like, Elm sort of looks over to be like, oh my god, they're here. But he gets distracted and Hauth elbows him in the face, which breaks his concentration, sending the parents back into, like, towards the mist. The boy, meanwhile, is watching the whole thing, and the physicians are holding him, and he is, like, fighting their grip to get to his parents, and Elspeth is, like, sneaking towards the boy, and she notices the parents disappear into the mist, but says, like, she can't see them anymore, but she can hear their screams. Then the destriers start to clash, and, like, all the people that were there that were, like, forced to watch just start running, and it becomes absolute chaos.
Yeah.
And then Elspeth is the biggest moron on the planet and starts running and cries out for Nightmare to help her. And she just bangs into the physician, Orth Willow.
Yeah,
Elm is like, stay away from Orth Willow. I don't want him to catch sight of you or, like, to notice you. Stay out of sight. And she does
she's like,
none
run
of
straight
those
into
things.
him.
And then run straight. And then she's like, oh, my degeneration, you're taking over. Like, what was the reason for her to get Nightmare's help at that moment? She didn't need it. What had she been doing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just... So she bangs into him with Nightmare's strength. And, like, he is shocked by it. And he tries to swipe at her with his claw to get a bit of her blood so he can tell, he can sense whether she's got magic or not. And then the other physicians are grabbing at her. But, like, none of them can with Nightmare's speed and strength. So she grabs the boy and tells him to come with her. So there was a third physician all of a sudden, like, sort of tells Lyndon, the destrier, he's like, look, they're escaping, go get them. So he goes to follow them into the mist. So they run in, and she can taste the magic, like the salt in the air. And then she gets a memory of her in golden armor watching a castle burn to the ground. But there are a bunch of children behind her, and she knows that she needs to keep them safe. And all of a sudden she sees, like, a chamber at the edge of a meadow, and it beckons her towards it. And then all of a sudden the kid is yelling at her that he can see his parents. So, like, she just had a really weird memory of, like, protecting kids, which is probably why she got the memory, because she's right now protecting a kid.
Yeah.
So he can see his parents, so she grabs her charm out of her pocket and tells the boy to go and find his parents and, like, have them share it. Like,
yeah.
Because she only has the one. And he's sort of like, you can't take, like, no, that's your charm. And she says, don't worry, the magic of the mist doesn't affect us.
So I wonder if, like, does this kid have a charm as well? Because if he has one on him, because he's worried about running into it.
Right.
Like, they don't even need to, although...
They probably
gave it up, yeah.
Yeah, stripped him of it.
That's true. But it's just funny that he's like, but they can't share it. And she's like, you're literally in the mist. You idiot.
Yeah. So then, like, she sends him away and she's ready to face Lyndon. And she transforms into, like, a monsterish. Like, not all the way, but, like, the long claws and, you know. And he's there and she goes for him. And she is on top of him with her claws out, and then her mind just goes black. And she hears him screaming. And that sort of, like, snaps her out of it. So she gets off of him and just runs and bangs into another destrier. And turns out this one is Ravyn.
Of course it is.
Thank God. And he just asks her, like, what's going on? And he's like, you're safe, don't worry. But her eyes are yellow and her hands are covered in blood. So I think she, like, stabbed her claws into his chest.
Yeah. I don't even think she knows what she did.
Yeah. So then we get the next chapter card, and it says, the King's Guard wears no seal. The black horse is their emblem, their duty, their creed. With it they uphold blunder's laws. They are the shadows in the room, the eyes on your back, the footsteps on your streets. The King's Guard wears no seal. So, essentially, watch your back. They're coming for you.
Yeah. They're shitty.
Yeah. So Ravyn is wearing all black because that's what the destriers wear. So he uses, actually, the black wool of his uniform to clean her hands of blood, because it's just not going to show up on his black outfit. And he asks who it was, and she tells him who it was. She's like, it was destrier Lyndon. And he's like, is he dead? And she says, I don't think so. Like, he's just hurt. So he hears more destriers coming. So he just says, like, stay here. I'll deal with it. And he goes and he finds them and gives them orders away from Elspeth. Like, you go check north. You check south. And, like, Elspeth is east. So, like, he clears them away. While he's gone, she's arguing with Nightmare in her head. And she asks him, like, what he did to that destrier. But he tells her, we did it together. That she asked for his help. And I'm like, she did ask for his help. She didn't need to ask for his help. Why did she ask for his help in that moment? It was so silly of her.
Yeah.
And then she calls him a monster. And I'm like, thinking in my head, I'm like, you need to stop asking for his help if you're just going to complain about what he does. Like, you know he's nightmarish. Like, you should know that. So,
what do you expect him to do?
Yes. For the love of God, stop complaining. So,
he's saving your life. Like,
yes.
If he didn't do what he did then, Lyndon would have caught her. And then what? She would be in the dungeons.
Yeah. Anyway, so he asked what happened. Because, like, it wasn't fine, but, like, she was not involved in anything.
Yeah.
And then she was like, he's like, what happened? And she was like, I couldn't let the boy be taken. So she was like, I brought him into the woods and gave him her charm for his parents. Mm. And Raven was like, were you recognized by anyone? She was like, I don't think so, but everything happened really fast. And I'm like, you definitely, like, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, and Hauth is already, like...
suspicious of her.
Exactly.
So, he asks, what about when her eyes turn yellow? Like, what's up with that? And she just says she can't tell him. And that if he knew, he wouldn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. And he just responds that her estimation of him is lower than he thought. And I was just like, oh...
It's sweet, but I'm also like, wouldn't you be like, wait, what does that mean? What does that mean, though?
Yeah.
You can't just say that and leave it there.
I guess not. So, they head back to the road, and she takes off the mask and cloak, but still carries it around. And, like, there's no way that a cloak that was big enough to completely hide her dress is small enough to go unnoticed in her arms.
Yeah.
And, like...
it's all chaos, I guess.
How does nobody recognize, like, Elm's mask?
Yeah.
Was it black? Like a destrier? Was it his house colors? Like, I'm
assuming he's dressed like a destrier, because he is one.
I'm just so frustrated. Anyway. He just tells her, like, lie as if you were just another maiden getting caught up in the crowd and you got lost or something. So they meet up with Elm and Hauth, and then Raven actually gets mad at Hauth for ordering an execution on market day, which, thank God, somebody is getting angry about it. So they then have an argument, and Hauth argues that it is his right as crown prince to execute traitors. And Raven just says, yeah, you can, but not without my say-so. And just says, like, I'm the commander of the Destriers, not you. And I really liked that.
I did too, but it also just confuses me.
Yeah,
I'm like, how does he get a say over her?
Yeah.
Like,
How is his word more important than the crown prince?
Yeah.
And, like once
he's going to be
king,
king.
Does that still mean that he needs Raven's okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he challenges Hauth. But Hauth is a coward because he won't accept the challenge without being able to use his scythe card. Because it doesn't work on Raven. Mm-hmm. And Raven just points out that he won't accept the challenge. He won't accept his challenge. And so he asked the other destriers, like, is that really the type of person you want to follow? Somebody who won't accept a challenge because they don't have the magic? Like,
yeah.
He was like, I'm your commander, not this guy. You follow my orders, not his. Because they were all participating in this execution. So he just sort of orders them. He's like, don't let anyone pass through the gate, and like look for the kid and his parents. And they're like, what if we don't find him? And Raven just says, fine, let the spirit take them. Essentially do a half-ass look, but if you don't see them, leave it.
Yeah.
So they start to walk down the road. Elspeth, Raven, and Elm. And Ravyn just tells her that Jesper is going to go look for the boy and his parents, and that they actually have a place for people like that to keep them safe. And I'm like, how far away is it? Because it seems like this town is really fucking small.
Yeah.
And Elspeth is, like, shocked that they have this place.
Well, she didn't think any of them existed.
Yeah.
This is a wild turn of events.
Yeah. So, Ravyn gets a brain message from his dad. That's what I call them, brain messages.
I like it.
And says they have to get back to Castle U immediately. So they reach the carriage that that Fenrir is in, which is Ravyn's dad, and he just tells them that Emery escaped from Stone. So it's like a dun dun dun. He's being held hostage and he escaped.
Yeah.
So then we get the next chapter card. It says, to steal a Providence card is a wicked crime. No one is invulnerable to the king's inquest. No one is immune to the chalice. The truth always will out. Those who bear guilt will pay in blood. To steal a Providence card is a wicked crime. So essentially, if you try and steal a Providence card, or if you even steal a Providence card, then they use the truth serum on you, and then they kill you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, maybe don't.
Yeah. So they head back to the castle, and, like, of course, Emery's being spoiled, and he's, like, all blanketed up in front of the fire, because he walked all night to get home. I know.
True.
Yeah.
So
it's at least a day's walk and a night's
Yeah.
walk. So they introduce him to Elspeth, and, like, he doesn't remember her from the last time they met.
Yeah.
But he does, like, mention in code sort of her dad and the twin sisters.
Yes.
But it's hard for him to sort of remember. And, like, he doesn't seem particularly crazy right now.
Yeah.
So he actually asks her if she knows that the Yews are descendants of the Shepherd King. And that the Rowan King built the castle in stone. And there are no other castles around except for the one in the ruins on their property. So, like, essentially, Emery is saying the castle in stone was not the Shepherd King's castle because the Rowan King made that. So, like, where else in Boulder is there a castle for a king? Oh, there's ruins of one on our property.
So we have to be descendants. It's like...
Yeah. And he also says that the Shepherd King would have taken the name of the trees on the castle property, which are yews. And they are also yews. And Elspeth realizes that they never ever say the king's last name in the old Book of Alders. So she asks Nightmare about it, and he just seems salty and doesn't want to tell her, because of course he is.
Yeah.
So they have a meal, and Emery just looks like he hasn't eaten in ages, and it just shows how the degeneration is sort of affecting him. And Ravyn wants to bring him back to Stone immediately. And he's like, I'm the one who's going to get in trouble once they see that he's missing. But his mom is like, oh, let him stay the night, because she just wants her little boy back, right?
Yeah.
Now he's not so little, but, like...
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ravyn just says, oh, fine. So, like, Elspeth sees that he's, like, willing to take the brunt of this punishment that's definitely going to happen, so that Emery can stay the night and be comfortable, and his mom can have her son back for a bit. So as they eat, Elm wants to talk to Ravyn, and he just says he doesn't trust Elspeth. And he knows that she's hiding something. And he thinks that they should have been stealing the well card today. And Elspeth just is like, I told you we should go steal the well card.
Yeah.
But you said no. And Ravyn just tells them both that he wanted all of them accounted for when the Ivies stole the well card. So, like, Ravyn had a plan the whole time.
Yeah.
However, the Ivies couldn't find the card. So Elspeth and Elm are, like, both mad because they wanted to be included in the plan. But Ravyn
But
was
also,
like,
she can see the cards.
I know. She should have gone.
Yeah. And if anybody starts using a well card on her, not a well card, sorry, a chalice card, the truth one, she's gonna tell them that she's infected. So, like, that's your bigger worry, is that she tells them that she's infected, not, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, you could have, I get being like, but I couldn't have you involved, but it's also like, if she's suspected, she's gonna tell worse things than she tried to steal a card.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Raven's just like, this was a need-to-know mission. You didn't need to know. So, later on, her and Ravyn and Elm and Fenrir, for a hot minute, are sitting in the parlor for a drink. And her and Ravyn are making eyes at each other. So, like, Elm and Fenrir leave separately. And then they talk. So, she wants them to be honest with each other. So, she just tells them, I'm degenerating. And that's why she attacked the destrier. And she just says, I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
And she's never spoken it out loud. So, you know, it's a big deal for her to finally admit.
Well, she also, I guess, didn't really realize her degeneration until...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he tells her that she can trust him and she's safe with him, and magic or no magic, they are linked. So she wants to get lost in his touch, so she kisses him. And they make out, and it's really intense, and all of a sudden they hear clatter outside. Not outside the house, but like outside the room. And so he's like, well, this isn't very private. So he takes her back to his room instead.
It reminds me of last book when the fire sprite guy was outside the door like, do you need hydration? Do you need food?
With Quicksilver.
We were just rearranging furniture. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, so he takes her to his room, and, like, she commented on the mess of his room in either the first week or it must have been the first week. And how messy it was and how she was really shocked. But she sort of sees it differently now, because she says, like, this is the chaos showing his true self, not, like, the controlled captain he has to act like. So she's, like, realizing that he's not actually this calm and controlled, like, captain of the guard. He's not Kale.
Yeah. And we are happy about it.
We are. Yes. You know what? So, like, he's not this calm, controlled, cool individual. He's actually very chaotic and messy, and, like, that's his true self. Mm-hmm. But he can't show that to anyone. He has to put on this persona. So she's like, oh, this is him letting a little bit of himself seep out.
Yeah.
Which is, like, kind of sad.
Yeah.
So they have, like, an awkward moment, and he asks what she wants. And, like, she's like, I don't really want to say because it's not proper. But she doesn't want to keep more from him than she already is. So, like, she feels like because she's keeping this big secret about Nightmare in her head, she has to tell him every other thing.
She wants the D.
So, yes. So, she's like, well, he asked what I want. I'm gonna have to tell him. So she sits on the bed and pulls up her skirt and just tells him she wants to be with him. And I'm like, where are the chaperones?
Well, they think it's an act, too. The chaperones also think it's an act. So, like, not very smart.
No. So, anyway, they make out on the bed and they just take each other's clothes off. I will say, this is a very PG-rated, like, spicy scene. Like, this is, I would say this is like a 1.
Yeah.
On the spice scale.
That's what I was kind of implying when I was telling you about the spice scene. It's kind of like Nora Roberts-y, like...
Yeah.
There's no words that you're like, ooh.
Yeah, it's very tame. So they make out on the bed and take each other's clothes off, and then he asks if he can kiss her. And she's like, it's a bit late for that. But he tells her, not on your mouth. And, like, apparently that's, like, the line that everybody goes crazy for in this book.
Oh, really?
Yes!
Hilarious.
Yeah,
kills me.
Like, everybody's like,
Kills me.
oh my god! everyone freaks out at that line.
Hilarious.
So he gets on his knees and he pushes her knees apart, and when she finally gives her consent, because consent is important, he goes for it.
I'm also like, this is something, because she's clearly a virgin.
We would assume.
Yeah.
But she don't act like it.
No. Maybe she's not. Maybe she actually had sex with that Alex guy. Maybe. She said they fooled around or kissed or something. Yeah.
And I don't know, the fact that she's like, you already did kiss me, and he's like, not there. Like, it just makes
Yeah, but if somebody asked me if they could kiss me, I wouldn't assume they meant, like, you're not Frenching my vagina. Like...
I guess.
I wouldn't automatically assume they meant go down on me. I'd be like, you have been kissing me.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is what I was thinking when I was reading this part. I was like, what? And then I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's a player's move. That's a guy that gets with girls.
Yeah. Anyway, so they have this, like, lovely flowery sex scene. I'm not describing it, because no fucking way. And he makes her come slowly, and then she gets on top of him, so, like, if she's a virgin, she is taking charge.
I just assumed where she's infected, like, if she shows her arms, there's black veins. I'm like, is it only in your arms that you can see?
But also, like, maybe this is one of those really proper places where they don't normally undress. Because, like, in medieval times or whatever, way, way back, when you wore those gigantic dresses, it's not often that you would undress because it was too hard. So you didn't have panties on. Panties weren't a thing. So you just hoist everything up and you get in there.
Which is, I guess, exactly what they're doing. So maybe that is the case.
But, like, they have taken their clothes off.
Yeah.
In his room. So, like, maybe this is the instance where maybe she's had sex before, but she's never taken all of her clothes off because she doesn't need to, because they don't often do it. But they have a special connection, so they want to see each other all the way naked.
Yeah, that's... I'll buy that.
It's what I'm sticking to. Anyway,
I like it.
So she gets on top of him, and then they keep going, and they both come, and then he wraps her up in his bed, and they fall asleep together.
Cute.
Yeah, it's adorable. And that's it. That's where we stop this week, is them having a nice little moment. They're both sated sexually.
And there's many lies still.
There's what?
Many lies.
Lies?
Like, well, by omission. Like, she's not telling him, even though since the beginning of the book, the nightmare was like, you should tell him about me. And, like, where's the nightmare this whole sex scene?
Yeah. That would be awkward. Can you imagine if he just, like, peeked him while, like, she's, like, coming and being like, hello!
Oh, no! Sorry! Wrong timing!
It's like, goodbye. Or, like...
If I were her, I would be thinking about, oh, my God, is the nightmare here? Can the nightmare see this? Like, I'd be worried about that.
I would sort of be like, talk dirty to me.
The nightmare? She's in a three-way relationship?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Is there any way to make it better? Like, I mean, like, what's the best way to make a bad situation? Like, how do you make the best of a bad situation? You've got a shepherd king who's, like, pretty hot as fuck, supposedly, in your head. Nightmare has nowhere to go, and he has to witness it. Help her out, man. I'm here for it. Make it better. Talk dirty. It just reminds me of that song. What is it? And then they whisper the talk dirty to me.
Talk dirty to me.
Oh my God, he could hum that. He could sing that in her head.
That would immediately, I'd be like laughing while riding.
And then Ravyn be like, What's going on?
Is this a me problem? Is this a you problem?
Oh, anyway.
Yeah. So, that wraps it up for this week. On that note. So if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandgoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandgoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week we will be finishing up One Dark Window, chapters 28 to 35. Make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.
Almost just X'd out.